social pages that we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff to focus on here today, including Governor talking about the fentanyl crisis, visiting the Fort Worth area here today, another vacant building fire, so maybe not another, but another major building fire happening within the borderland here early this morning, plus another business looking at investing in town, so a lot of currents coming through, plus elections, just that minor topic that we discuss here. Going to be focusing on today on one of the other congressional races here. Well, an increasingly representative congressional race, specifically speaking with Tony Gonzalez of the Texas 23rd Congressional District, the incumbent for that seat that, again, has a increasing slice of the El Paso County and all reaches eastward within our broadcast area. Just plain and simple is what that is going to end up being here. So talking about him, about his candidacy to continue representing that district and some of the major things that he wanted to continue focusing on as he goes forward, as we have Leroy Chuck and Calvin Williams joining us over on the stream, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. That is essentially the main page. I mean, we got all the other ones that you are more than welcome to tune into as well here. Of course, don't want to neglect our on-air audience as well. Anytime I say these things, don't be mistaken. We're thinking about you. Just know that y'all can be as active if you're out on the road or just listening, however you may prefer to be so. But the ways we are out there is important because, well, certain things sometimes don't work. But in the meantime, we want to be out there all the ways that we can to foster the conversation about the things that affect us here in the borderlands. So if you're driving around there, stay safe, keep your eyes on the road, but hopefully you're engaged with the discussion. Taking calls a little bit later in the show, as we usually do, and a lot of stuff to be talking about here today. So again, we did have, Texas Governor Greg Abbott speaking from that round table in, the Fort Worth area specifically. According to the release from the governor's office, listening to the stories of families who have endured the pain of losing a loved one to fentanyl overdose and discussed ways that state and local law enforcement are working to stop this deadly drug. Again, very clearly aimed towards, well, you may have heard the ads yourself here that are being put out by the Abbott campaign about how this then relates to the election. Two major still prong points coming out for the Abbott campaign around primarily border security and everything that comes with that. Consider that when I say border issues or border security, consider it shorthand for a literal physical border security, building the wall, as has been another plank of his campaign and current term of office. In terms of personnel, all of that, human trafficking, smuggling, drug smuggling. That's what I say, that those are the concepts that you should be considering as we talk about this, because this is very much how their campaign is discussing it as well. So that's part of it here, but the major quote they're putting out from this and showing that essentially every point they make on this is, again, the fascinating thing that we're talking about a gubernatorial race here. Abbott has made it, there's been the same kind of speculation that's been going on for any otherwise prominent Republican across the country. It kind of feels like it does seem to come down mostly to governorships here, including Rick Scott and others discussed with it. But some of them have been talked about. Well, are you going to run for president if the former president Donald Trump doesn't try to run for the second term there? By the by, there is still quite the bit of focus on the current administration when it's coming out of the Abbott campaign. Specifically, the quote putting out along with his release relating to the roundtable, because of President Biden's open border policies, deadly drugs like fentanyl are flooding our streets and killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people. But this crisis isn't unique to Texas. It's a crisis plaguing our entire country. Quote does go on to describe some of these other, issues with the administration, frankly. And that's what, again, makes it interesting. And you could almost be not blamed for confusing this with a potential run for actual president. Because, sure, we don't get the same ads that I'm sure Florida is getting inundated with now. I am going to be hard-pressed to find a governor that is more focused on the administration than this, and particularly the lockstep that we're seeing across the top of the ballot. Dan Patrick, not as much, but as we talked about with the polling yesterday, him sitting pretty at it's beyond a supermajority of the polling coming out lately, 80-some%. He doesn't have much to worry about, and frankly, his major duties are a little bit more intractable than not. Calvin Williams saying, remember, hands across America? We should do hands along the border. Interesting concept there. Not sure how that would totally work out, but again, open invitation to the administration to actually come and visit this. Again, as much as I appreciate the visit by to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, would love for the top guys here to show up here, whether it be the president or vice president. Even if this whole Ukraine thing continues to be a major focus, I'm not going to hold my breath for it, but I'd like to see it happen at some point. There's just so much going on nationally here. But so, again, the focus coming out of the Abbott camp, again, you wouldn't be blamed for being confused to be that it's not an announcement of a run for presidential office. Frankly, I don't know what the Vegas odds are on it currently of there not being an announcement of running again for re-election out of the Trump camp. But if by some reasoning that were to happen, I would not be at all surprised if essentially Abbott pivots almost immediately to being that kind of a run. I mean, heck, they wouldn't even have to change any of their campaign advertising. Pick an ad, pick anything that they have put out here. And again, because it doesn't mention any actual primary opponents, does occasionally mention the presumptive general election opponent, that being Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, who is got a pretty decent lock on the Democrat nomination. There is the full expectation, as again, your reminder ever so gently, we are in early voting right now. Point is that it's a little weird that not even any opponents are being mentioned, but to a request that we did have from a listener about some focus on some of these other campaigns, I've gotten messages, emails, et cetera, about some of these other campaigns. We have focused on some of the, well, let's call them major candidates, the ones that have been putting themselves out there the longest anyway, and we will be doing our best to revisit with them ahead of the actual election day itself. No promises. These are very busy campaigns, but overture and some initial plans are being made, so stay tuned for that. But the weird thing is that it's almost like the Abbott camp is just kind of forgotten about them, or just kind of, more accurately, probably ignoring them. Just kind of, flies buzzing around because of the one or two random statements being made, but issues being brought up. Very curious for anyone out there. Again, some of y'all are sending me messages about some of these other camps and campaigns. Are any of these wedge issues that have been brought up? That has been the primary focus of all of the primary challenges to the Abbott campaign, have been trying to find those issues that they can find a crack in between any sign of daylight between the sitting governor and his base. Has it been effective, and why? Question of the day for anyone out there who may be, considering that kind of a vote. I know y'all out there, you send me stuff. Be very curious to know what you have to say. We're taking those calls a little bit later, but you can always leave their comments over on our social media as well. So that's one of the things circling around in my head today. Otherwise, got some more business step forward, step back. Good positive movements with more businesses, and a major one in general announcing that they are expanding in El Paso. Again, just furthering the narrative in my mind of further investment within the borderlands, setting up the next decade in my mind, even as we have more, otherwise underutilized or dilapidated buildings going up in flames. We'll talk more about that and all the situations affecting us in the borderland. Plus, coming up after this break, going to be speaking very specifically with Tony Gonzalez, the congressman for the Texas 23rd Congressional District, about all the stuff going on in that race and campaign. So that's some of the stuff we got on the docket for you here today. So, again, comments best left over on the social media. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch. But all that and more coming up after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. And let us know what you think. You really want to get these perspectives on the election, which is why we're focusing on one of the congressional races. But all that after this break. Don't go anywhere. You're locked into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Route 375 northbound at Montwood got a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Vinton, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right lane and slowing traffic there. And downtown Stanton Street north of Paisano at Rio Grande, police are working an injury accident. Also, if you're headed to southern New Mexico, blowing dust and low visibility west of the Lordsburg area on I-10. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brake Masters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Breakmaster shape. Download coupons at breakmasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Breakmaster, we give you an honest break.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home, and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Yeehaw! It's Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL, 0 APR, 1389 per thousand finance. Also, vehicles with full credit. Offers not combined.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways you can tune in and interact with the show, even while we're ahead of taking calls, as we'll open up probably end of next segment here, as we usually do. Maybe even end of this one here, because right now we're going to be having coming up the interview with Tony Gonzalez, congressman for the Texas 23rd Congressional District and a Republican. The Texas 23rd is one of those sometimes accused of being a gerrymandered district, but also it includes just so much wide open space where no one lives, including, amongst other things, the Big Bend area. It means that it encompasses, it's one of the bigger, it's bigger than some states. Let's just put it that way. And it is one congressional district, so it makes it an interesting one to hold. Previously, we had seen a decent amount of turnover going on pretty consistently here, but as the 23rd has shifted, including a good further chunk of our listening area here, because as El Paso did grow, but not nearly, it's kind of like the sense you get of, oh, I had my growth spurt, oh, but your brother grew a foot over the summer. Yeah, you feel a little bit outclassed there now, don't you? That's kind of the situation we're looking at here, and why the 23rd District does include even more of El Paso County than it did previously. So I was able to catch up, again, with Congressman Gonzalez to talk about all the things that he has been focused on. A little bit of reintroduction here, because we do like checking in with our representatives during the time, but a good reintroduction for those who may just becoming aware of this election, and particularly if you now live in those areas, which includes actually a little bit less of the lower valley, the Mission Valley area, but a little bit more of like, say, the northeast area of the county. So check your congressional representation and who you're going to be voting for. You're going to have to look at the maps yourself, or go to epcountyvotes.com, look at a sample ballot, and figure out who represents you. Maybe just the slightest important thing to know. Now, he does face a few challengers on the primary ballot, and there are some queuing up on the Democrat side of the ballot as well. But starting off with him and what he had to say about, again, this current term of office, what he hopes has been accomplished and hopes to do so in the next term of office. Here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez from the Texas 23rd Congressional District. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. Good to be back on.
Absolutely. It's been a minute since we checked in, and of course, during campaign season, this is a good a reason as any to talk with you further. So for people who may not be familiar, if we haven't been a minute since we talked, or are getting more aware of the political situations that we're in, give us a little bit of a background of yourself and the area that you represent.
Yeah, so I represent Texas's 23rd district. It stretches from San Antonio to El Paso. Probably have about 60% of El Paso County, everything kind of outside of the city limits. It's 29 counties. It's 820 miles of southern border. My background is before entering Congress, I was in the military. I served in the Navy for 20 years as a cryptologist.
And now you have had your coming up on the completion of your first term of office here. What are some of the major issues that you feel are, you campaigned on, and how those have turned out then when it comes to, again, how this term, this very unique term that I don't think any of the times we were talking about it towards the start of it could have been predicted to have turned out this way?
Yeah, border security is one of the things that I campaigned on, and it's one of the things that takes consumes a lot of my time, especially with having 42% of the southern border. You can imagine a lot of the communities that have been impacted. So border security is certainly one of those. And just recently we dropped the latest piece of legislation is the BOSS Act, and what that does is it uses federal grants to give resources to local law enforcement. Often in this crisis, the sheriffs are often the ones doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and this pluses up the Stone Garden account there. Another thing that I campaigned on that I work real hard at is bipartisanship. And I spent 20 years in the military, and in the military, you don't ask the person next to you, who do you go to bed with, who do you pray to, what's color of your skin, or any of that. None of that really matters. It's all about, hey, can you help me get the job done? And I've worked real closely on that. Most recently, last week, I had the chief of Border Patrol. I hosted the chief of Border Patrol there in Congress, and we put together a bipartisan group. It was 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats, and we just kind of had a briefing on the latest of what's happening on the border.
Yeah, you're meeting there with Border Patrol Chief Ortiz. One of the interesting points to come out of that specifically there, if people want to find you over on your websites or social here, you posted this one up on Facebook.com/Tony Gonzalez for Congress, was about Border Patrol looking to add about 1,000 new contractors. We've had a lot of conversations about staffing and just the literal personnel manpower behind everything and what's required for keeping, border security and these systems in place. So that was an interesting wrinkle I had not heard about before. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that would work? Because you are encouraging people who may have been former Border Patrol agents or law enforcement officers to contact your office.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And this crisis has just continued to spiral, and it's not good for anyone. Politically, it might be advantageous to Republicans, but I don't really care about the politics in it. The people that live and work along the border, they need help, and they need help today. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get a bipartisan group together, why I wanted to host Chief Ortiz and just kind of hear from him, but also have him hear from us. And we were able to do that. It was encouraging. It was encouraging to hear him talk about hiring 1,000 new contractors to help with the processing. The number one complaint I get from Border Patrol agents, they all tell me the same thing. They're like, Tony, I don't want to be in here processing migrants all day long. I want to be out in the field, stopping bad guys, terrorists, and drugs that are coming over, and bad actors. So it was very encouraging to hear Chief Ortiz talk about just kind of alleviating some of that stress. Like I said, it was bipartisan group. So while essentially Republicans were focused on ex-law enforcement, either retired Border Patrol chief or Border Patrol agents or sheriffs or something along those lines, some of the Democrats in the room had a good point, and they were like, hey, what about social workers? And I think this is probably a good compromise where you can go, at the end of the day, you just need someone qualified to process these agents. and I think we should kind of widen the net a little bit. But I was just very encouraged by the conversation, the fact that we were having a conversation to begin with on such an important topic.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Congressman Tony Gonzalez from the Texas 23rd Congressional District. You want to find anything more about him, his campaign, and such, you can find his main website, TonyGonzalezForCongress.com, or again, the social that we're talking about here. So on the issue of border security, now looking towards this potential next term of office, if reelected, what are some of the facets or features that you'll want to continue to focus on or try to bring to the table anew?
Yeah, one of the things that I keep hearing from agents, and once again, their morale is really low because they're extremely frustrated, is you have these small little drones that originate in Mexico, and they're flying drugs, oftentimes fentanyl, very dangerous, deadly drugs, and they're flying them across into the U.S. side. They drop their little payload. Someone comes in, a mule comes and picks it up, and away it goes. And these agents see these drones going back and forth, basically, crossing our border unmatched. So we've talked about looking at ways to add some funds to help with the technology standpoint. So that's one of the things that the BOSS Act does as well, is it allocates $60 million for kind of technology, which I think is absolutely needed in all aspects of it.
So, of course, we've had a recent visit to a lot of sectors of the border, including the ones within the borderland and the Texas 23rd in general, from Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, calling for increased resources, but they were kind of unspecific and a little bit unsatisfying to me in that way. If that is indeed a priority being put on, at least for a cabinet member level position within this current administration, what would you want to do to then seize on that when it comes to legislation, if that is indeed a priority that is going to be followed through on?
I'd like to see Congress kind of work again. It's just so broken. And, there's things that we clearly, the parties differ on, and I understand that, but there's things that we should all be paddling in the same direction. And one of those should be security. Nobody should want drugs to come into our country. Nobody should want terrorists to come into our country. Nobody should want bad actors. Now, that's different than the migrants that are most of the migrants that are coming over for economic purposes. But I think it's important to separate the two and then focus on securing our border in that aspect of it. And I would like to see, the administration just work a little more closely with Congress. And I represent 42% of the border. I want to have a discussion. I want to have dialogue. I want to find things that work together. I've been able to do that, but I've had to kind of build relationships within kind of one-offs instead of having entire organizations get behind it. But hopefully, it was encouraging for me to see them, Chief Ortiz and DHS Secretary Mayorkas make that trip and at least go talk to agents, even though it did not go well for them. It's still, that's part of being a leader, is showing up and listening. So there needs to be more collaboration, I think, between the executive branch and the legislative branch in Congress.
So that's kind of a large issue you bring up there, of the idea of fixing Congress. It's been not a small gripe on my part and a lot of other commentators and those elected to office. In addressing that, is there even a way to go about it? I mean, it almost seems insurmountable at certain points.
No, look, Andrew, and it is a big task, but one of the things I'm real proud of, I mean, look, this is my first time. This is my first time in Congress. And, I'm not in control of the schedule, or I'm not in control of hearings or what bills make it to the floor, but I am a member of Congress. And one of the things I was proud of is, we didn't have hearings or anything, but I brought the chief of Border Patrol down, and here we had this briefing. And it wasn't just, my friends that think exactly like me. It was a good mix of folks. Many of us were appropriators, so people that have influence over the power of the purse. And I think there needs to be more of that. There just needs to be more dialogue. There were no cameras in there. There was no grandstanding. We were just kind of did a round table, and we were just able to ask very real questions, get very real responses. So that is encouraging to me. But to me, I think it starts by just people in Congress just doing something. Like, people need help today we can't just wait and point fingers and, blame the administration for everything that's wrong. Congress has to lead again.
Again, guest right now has been Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez from the Texas 23rd Congressional District. Again, any more information about him, his campaign, the policies and procedures up for and on the ballot here for this upcoming primary, Tony Gonzalez for Congress.com. That's TonyGonzalesFOR Congress.com. So, Congressman Gonzalez, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about some of the things that you are focused on within your current term of office and the upcoming election and the next term of office, and the ways you want to go about them here today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Andrew. And I just remind your audience, look, early voting starts on Monday, right? February 14th is early voting, and Election Day is March 1st. So I encourage everyone, let your voice be heard. Go out, find your local, your polling station, and cast your vote for, the person that you believe in.
Again, thanks to Congressman Tony Gonzalez there for speaking with us. Do appreciate the opportunity to catch up with our congressional representation as we do. So just as a reminder for those of us over on the social media, just so you have a concept of mind that you may be inside the Texas 23rd Congressional District now. Up on screen right now, we have the previous Texas 16th and 23rd Congressional District shown out here that basically it went down to, started covering some of the Mission Valley, but basically it was all of El Paso County from about more than 3/4 of it was the Texas 16th Congressional District, just parts of the area most south of the county was it. And now what it is this is now, after this redistricting vote, this is what the Texas 16th Congressional District is versus the 23rd. So it includes actually a little bit less of the Mission Valley, but more down of the actual border areas and a lot more of all of the eastern border of El Paso County, and kind of going almost all the way up to the Franklin Mountains on the northern border and kind of clipping around there. So Dyer, 54, those kind of areas may increasingly be within that, again, newly redistrict area. So keep that in mind as you're considering who you're going to be voting for in these upcoming elections. It may have changed. Heck, even if you were previously in the 23rd, you might not be anymore. Redistricting is a weird process, so just keep that in mind as this may apply to you increasingly. So we'll have more focus on this race as we are getting closer to actual election day itself, amongst some of the other ones that we are discussing here. So just forewarned, forearmed, if you're going to be surprised when you go to the poll that you may not have the representative you were expecting there. So that's going to take us straight through our next break here. A lot of comments coming in on that over on the social media. We'll get to some of that and more coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We'll go ahead and put up those phone lines right now as well. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Justin Creed, your CBS 4 News update. A fight between a group of high schoolers at America has left one student with a stab wound. The district tells us that there was an altercation involving a small group of students on Friday afternoon around 4 o'clock, and one student stabbed another with a 1.5-inch blade. SISD says all parents were notified of the incident 3 hours later with a phone call from the principal around 7:20 in the evening. But as of yesterday, some parents say they had not heard what happened and were concerned with the safety of their children inside the school. The district says the injured student was taken to a local hospital, was treated and released. CBS 4 took some of the concerns from parents back to the district, asking why the delay for the notification, how a weapon landed on school grounds, and what the level of the supervision was at the time of the incident. The district says that they are working on those responses. The city of El Paso is hurting for workers right now, and it's not just one department, from fire to parks and recreation and police, to just name a few. The city says it's looking to fill more than 500 spots. This is the most that they've had in recent years. If you are interested in working for the city, you can visit our website to learn how to apply. With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Justin Cree.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is closed at Horizon. All I-10 westbound lanes are closed due to a 3-vehicle crash under the Horizon overpass. Expect delays and a big backup there. Watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder on the CD lanes at Wrestler eastbound. And if you're headed to southern New Mexico, blowing dust creates low visibility west of Lordsburg on the I-10. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our Tuesday has given way to a windy setup, but it's about to get even windier as we get into Wednesday. So for tonight, we can expect winds a little lighter than what we had during the day. But Wednesday, those winds get started by late morning and will continue till about sunset. Well, that's when we're expecting to see some of the strongest winds with gusts possibly to 65 miles an hour. As a result, we are under a high wind warning Wednesday afternoon and into your early evening.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then, sentences gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. Babbel is created by language experts who use the spaced repetition method to help you learn quickly and remember what you learned. With Babbel, you can speak a new language. Babbel. Language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State. This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social platforms these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, all available for you to tune in and chime in if you want to. But we have gone ahead and opened up those phone lines here. Talk about the candidate we just had on. Again, thanks to Tony Gonzalez, current congressional representative, Republican from the Texas 23rd Congressional District, which, again, you may live in now. Just check for yourself. I'll just pop up that map one more time here. If you're in the pink area shown here on the map that we got on screen on our social media, you are in the Texas 23rd Congressional District now, which includes a lot more of the eastern parts of El Paso County than it previously did. So most of the major populated parts are there. I mean, a good chunk of like Horizon City, the east side. I remember part of the contention that came out of the resetting of this map was if Fort Bliss would be within the 16th or the 23rd Congressional District. We had some discussion about that, but just, forewarn forum, know who you might be voting for here. Demographic changes have consequences when it comes to, representation amongst other things. Again, remember, similarly, we had effectively the loss of a state house seat from our area being district out of there. That's what's leading to the whole kerfuffle with the Texas, I believe, 79th House District. We've gotten into that as well here. Some of those forums going on over the last week, some roundtables from some other outlets, including El Paso Matters, focused on that. So take a look for yourself there as well, because, these things matter. Also, point of fact here, and touches on another issue I find near dear and griping about more often than not, is the fact that that is effectively the election for that seat, because do not believe that there is a challenger on the Republican side of the ballot there, only on the Democrat side. Something to be worked on for sure in the future. I don't like to see it. The idea of anyone just getting a pass through or not getting the full challenge, it makes me sad on the inside. Logistical concerns, getting someone to run. I'm not putting my money where my mouth is when it comes to running there, but I can still say that it makes me sad anyway, a lot of comments coming in here as well. Kathy Cordry, Louis Pinato, Josh Heminger, Barbara Carrasco, and more. Again, do have those Calvin Williams a little bit earlier. Again, do have comments and calls coming in. Louis Pinato disagreeing on some points with our candidate there, seeming ignorant to the fact that this is the purposeful destruction of the United States of America. Yeah, I don't think he'd agree with you on that point either, and I find myself as well. Just Heminger with some feedback on our content here. You appreciate the no. We'll have to look into that. And Barbara Carrasco with some other comments, but I believe we also have Barbara on the west side on the line here with us. So, Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
I was going to make, just listening to Congressman Gonzalez, and I wrote down a few things here. One of the things he said that 40% of the border is his responsibility. Great. And he said that they're hiring more contractors because morale is low and the Border Patrol doesn't want to be processing. So we can read from that they're hiring more contractors to do processing so they can bring more illegal immigrants faster for processing. And now we're back to shuttling them back and forth from the border to the processing centers. That makes a lot of sense. And then he says that Mayorkas and Ortiz were here, and that was great because that's the point of being a great leader. Well, the other point is in which he forgot there's two sides to the coin. You have to be a great leader, but then you have to find solutions for the concerns that you were confronted with. And there have been actually, if we haven't learned anything from the meeting that Cuellar and the mayors and the county judges had not too long ago with Mayorkas, then we haven't learned anything. Because Mayorkas comes here, Ortiz comes here, and they talk. Talk is cheap. We need action. The flow is still coming. What the Border Patrol wants is to stop the flood at our borders. These guys come and they listen. I don't even know if they're paying attention. They're just there maybe dreaming, but they're not helping Border Patrol. We're not moving forward with any improvements. I know that Governor Abbott has these trailers along the border. I was actually going to call them the Durham motion, but now I'm sidetracked. I was thinking today about those trailers that Governor Abbott has on the border. I'm thinking, what are they stopping? I still see pictures night after night with Bill Malugin in the valley. I don't understand where we're moving forward. And then the $60 million, he said they're getting $60 million for technology. Why don't they finish the wall? I mean, why is it that the American people can't sue this government for not protecting us, for not protecting our sovereignty, keeping their oath of office? They say we have the ability to change things, but we have to wait for an election. We vote with our feet. Well, we keep waiting to vote with our feet, and we're not going to have a country to be voting for, or anybody to save America. I just see this as such a destructive administration. And if Tony Gonzalez and them feel that their cheap talk is great to sit around a table and no cameras there and just one-on-one, he's sadly mistaken about what's going on in this administration. And I would hope that they would find something that they could legislate. I know that that the Republicans are in the minority, but hey, there's miracles. Perform one. That's all I say. Perform a miracle for the American people.
What I will say to that point is that on the heels of this, or actually right before we did this interview, again, if there was any confusion, this interview, according to his schedule and availability, we conducted this late last week for airing this week here, so his reference to early voting beginning, if that was any confusion there. But he has filed the BOSS Act, the bill to double Operation Stoneguard funding. That's the one we talked about, or the actual name of it, Border Operations Strengthened by Stone Garden, BOSS, BOSS Act, and that would increase the amount of money. So we talked a lot about Operation Lone Star. That's been the one, the focus of the current gubernatorial administration under Texas Governor Greg Abbott. But this would be the federal side of it to increase the amount of funding going to essentially local law enforcement in order to support what is going through the operations of the federal agencies involved in it. At the same time, I will say that I take your point about getting the more contractors on board. And I think his point was mostly on the fact that it is then the processing is then taking him away from being in the field. So if it's not requiring a badge to do it here, because he has, I just want to make the point here, signed on to some of those other letters that have gone out a little bit earlier this year about wanting answers and demanding answers from the Biden administration over the whole, tens of thousands of people who have been released in this country on the promise to appear that have not. So I wouldn't say that he's exactly wanting that to be increased either, from the way he has put forth legislation and his responses to the current administration.
Well, one of the questions I have for him on that is, several months ago I met with him and I asked him, why is it that they were flying illegal immigrants out of Laskin Air Force Base? Because he's the one who suggested it to the administration.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him point blank, do you know how many people are being shipped out? Do you know where they're going and who they are? And he said yes. So my question to him is, well, how many have gone? What ages are they? What's the makeup of the groups? And where are they in the United States? I'd like an answer to that one. If they were keeping a log, as he says, we have a right to know where they're at, who they were, and where they went. So,
I mean, that's a pretty.
It's time we start putting our politicians, even if they're Republicans, it's time that we start, calling them on the carpet.
Oh, you're not going to get any argument from me on that point here. Again, I am firmly in the camp of there should never be a comfortable politician. They should always be worried about, am I doing enough or answering the questions here? So we've got that noted down here. The beautiful thing about this election season is that we're in the primary right now, but that's not the end of it. He specifically, Tony Gonzalez, has both primary opponents and general election opponents guaranteed. So we will definitely be doing more interviews about this and focusing on this race, and we'll definitely be asking that question here in future ones. So again, thank you for pointing that out and how this could work when we announce we have guests on. If you want to submit us a question, as we've also had Andrew and other people who've called in and suggested questions before, we do write these down and ask them when available here. So we'll keep that in mind as we go forward with this. So thank you for the point and the question. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate your program.
Oh, thank you very much. Do appreciate the comments and calls as well. Again, we do have that phone line open right now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Due for that next break right now. So, again, if you wanted to call in, 915-544-5876. Got to get the 915 on there these days to place the call around here. But otherwise, back after this break, talking more about some of the business developments, positive, negative, however you take it, after this break. And don't forget our question of the day. Have any of those wedge issues worked for you? Back after this break.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is closed at Horizon. All I-10 westbound lanes are closed due to a 3-vehicle crash under the Horizon overpass. Expect delays and a big backup there. Watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder on the CD lanes at Wrestler eastbound. And if you're headed to southern New Mexico, blowing dust creates low visibility west of Lordsburg on the I-10. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Looking for a great deal on blinds, shades, and shutters? Save 50% off any order during Blindster.com's President's Day sale. Blindster offers custom wood and faux wood blinds, roller shades, cellular shades, even custom plantation shutters, and they're all 50% off for a limited time. Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for joining us, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show here. If you want to call in during the show here, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Are taking those calls right now. If you're calling in the middle of the segment, you might be put on hold briefly there and then pop you up on the show, but you'll hear what's going on over the line there. Also, a lot of comments coming in. Louis Pinato, just, you can only miss the point so many times, my dude. The way we do interviews and even talked about it for this one is, let's just say we have an engagement problem when it comes to voters in our area, so a little bit of like setting the table, some basics here is kind of needed. We're not going to go for the jugular in every interview. Good Lord. Anyway, a lot to talk about here, a lot of comments, and if you want to chime in, you can do so over on the social, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where we are up these days, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. You can find us and chime in there. Kathy Cordry's comments from a little bit earlier, not pleased with this administration, saying they don't care about the American people, amongst, other things. You want to see it for yourself and some of these other comments, questions, and things like that, you can certainly do so by checking it over there on our social media. But again, we do have the phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have a call on the line right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Roscoe.
Hi there, Roscoe. What's on your mind?
I'd like to tell the congressman, thank you for your service. I understand you're chief petty officer retired. I'm Army retired.
Yep, I do believe that is the case for Congressman Tony Gonzalez, was prior service there as well, and part of his bona fides that he professes as well. Was there anything else, other comments you want to make about his campaign or the points he was making?
Yeah. Also, I'm retired law enforcement as well, and I'm very disturbed with what goes on with the electorate here in El Paso, Texas. It's like you got the blind leading the blind. You have people that blindly vote for leftist causes and whatnot. They don't do any homework. They just believe what they're told, and it's just like a Judas goat leading a bunch of sheep to slaughter. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. I mean, as Barbara kind of said there, and it's a statement that I will always find myself agreeing with, any elected official of any stripe should be open to question and, frankly, interrogation when it comes to the important issues that come up about this. So I frankly applaud her efforts to actually ask and directly question our elected officials. I wish more people in our area did that kind of a thing, because I mean, that is the kind of the travesty of our system, is that they are elected and they're in office for that period of time, and then the only time to really chime in on it is then when it comes to the next election. But the interim is incredibly important as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, and I have a question for the congressman, if he's still there.
Oh, we that was a previously recorded interview, but we got more interviews coming up. What would you want to ask him?
Okay. Well, I would ask is, does he not find it problematic that our local congressman is sending her staff to Juarez to tell people how to apply for asylum and stuff, and her husband is an immigration judge? Isn't that a problem?
I mean, an interesting point there. We usually don't get cross-congressional representation, just because, to make it clear, we're talking about two different races here. You're referring there to Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, Democrat of the Texas 16th thing. Yeah. The 16th congressional district. He's from the 23rd, so you might have something to say about that.
But what I'm asking is, I wonder if he finds that problematic. I do. I think it's a big conflict of interest. Thank you, Andrew. I'm off.
No, appreciate the point there. Just make it totally clear here which races we're talking about, and the fact that these are not candidates against each other, but well, they do represent our area in their own ways. Speaking of which, we are going to be speaking with Congresswoman Veronica Gonzalez coming up here. So stay tuned for that coming up a little bit later this week as well, as we kind of close out our coverage of that race, having talked previously with her primary opponent, again, DMB. You can find that interview over on our social pages if you want to here. That's going to take us more or less... Leroy Chuck with his constant comment. Only vote for candidates that give me free stuff. Do murals count about that? Tell you what, we'll talk about that coming out of the break because, believe it or not, there has actually been some movement on that coming out of City Council. So that's going to take us through the top of the hour here. So don't worry, we've got another hour of Talk El Paso yet to go here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot more coming up here, including those business implications, both good and bad, in our area. And let's just talk about that public art thing. All that coming up after this break. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is closed at Horizon. All I-10 westbound lanes are closed due to a 3-vehicle crash under the Horizon overpass. Traffic's being forced to exit at Horizon. Expect delays and a backup there. Watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder of the CD lanes at Wrestler eastbound. I-10 eastbound at Vinton, just north of town. Disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder there. Carry Edwards, Paso traffic.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply. And then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Dad, this is fun. I didn't think I'd like kayaking.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I think it's time to head back in.
Okay. Can we come back?
Sure.
Tomorrow?
Let's check with Mom. Hey, be careful getting out of the boat.
It's a kayak, Dad.
I'm going to return the kayak. Just make sure you have everything.
Yep. Can we walk home?
How about a taxi? 233 North Maple, please.
It's a short fare from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Also, find fun activities to do like boating and biking or camping and hiking, plus much more. It's all right in your naturehood.
Best day ever.
A public service announcement brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is urging Russia to choose diplomacy over war.
As long as there is hope of diplomatic resolution that prevents the use of force and avoids incredible human suffering that would follow, we will pursue it.
Speaking at the White House, Biden said the U.S. remains committed to intensive, high-level diplomacy to ease tensions between Ukraine and Russia. Dr. Anthony Fauci says he understands why states are starting to loosen mask mandates. The White House's chief medical advisor said the CDC still recommends wearing masks, but COVID case numbers are trending downward. The federal mask mandates for places under federal jurisdiction, such as planes, are set to expire next month. The calendar may say February, but Mother Nature appears to have some severe thunderstorms on tap for parts of the South. Parts of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky could see wild weather in the coming days. Hail, high winds, and tornadoes are all possible from the storms expected to fire up. On the cold side of the system, 6 inches or more of snow is possible from northern Oklahoma and Kansas through Kansas City, Chicago, and into the lower peninsula of Michigan. Actor Alec Baldwin is being sued by the family of a cinematographer who was accidentally shot and killed on a New Mexico film set. Lisa Taylor has more.
The husband and son of Helena Hutchins are also suing the producers of the film Rust and other crew members. The wrongful death suit claims the production company broke basic rules for use of a firearm on the film set. Baldwin was practicing a scene last October when he fired a live round, striking Hutchins and the film's director. The director survived while Hutchins died that day. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The Dow gained 423 points to close at 34,989. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Families of Sandy Hook school shooting victims are settling with a gunmaker. Dina Kodiak has more.
Remington Arms agreed to settle liability claims from the families of 5 adults and 4 children who were killed. It marks the first time a gunmaker has been held liable for a mass shooting. This comes almost 8 years after loved ones sued the maker over the rifle that was used in the 2012 mass shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. Adam Lanza forced his way into Sandy Hook Elementary and fatally shot 20 first graders and 6 staff members. The gun used by Lanza was Remington's version of an AR-15 assault rifle.
A man accused of trying to kill a Louisville candidate for mayor is having his bond raised to $100,000, cash only. Quintez Brown appeared in court this morning to face the charges against him, which include attempted murder and 4 counts of wanton endangerment. There were 4 other people in the office of Democratic candidate Craig Greenberg when Brown allegedly walked in Monday and opened fire. Greenberg's sweater was grazed by a bullet, but there were no injuries. New York City's discounted transit fare program is getting permanent funding. Liz Warner reports.
Mayor Eric Adams announced the historic move, allocating $15.5 million to the Fair Fares plan this year. This is the first time the program funding is guaranteed. It will increase to a baseline of $75 million annually next year. The program offers a 50% discount on both subway and bus Metro cards for low-income New Yorkers. The mayor says Fair Fares has proven to be transformative for many residents struggling to get by, noting that the path to an equitable recovery runs through the city's transit system.
The Chicago area mansion owned by Bulls legend Michael Jordan has now been on the market for 10 years. He originally sought $29 million in 2012 for the 9-bedroom property, but the listing price today is close to $15 million. The mansion has 15 full bathrooms, a regulation-sized basketball gym, a circular pool, and a cigar room. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. HOPE. That's HOPE. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Rich is just a really, really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, Talk El Paso, Andrew J. Polk, any of those places, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, you'll find us under some name or another, and be able to join in the conversation that way. Again, if you are one of our vehicle-bound listeners right now, please stay safe. Keep your eyes on the road. Deal with that traffic. We got the reports on going for you out there. And we'll enjoy it while it lasts. More conversation seems to be happening about that impending Reimagine I-10 reality, or coming to reality being the better way to put it here, because it bears repeating, because I just feel like enough people don't have the understanding that all the construction that's been going on is going to lead up to the redoing entirely of I-10. At the very least, a roadbed maintenance, and, well, increasing conversations, including some community organizations have been following, talking more about that section between essentially downtown and Copia as being maybe widened, and what that could mean for everywhere. We've had a lot of focus on the downtown area, but so that's just some of the issues we got coming up here. So we do have that phone line open as well. The number to call here, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Some of the other business implications we got looking at, kind of a give and take day happening recently here in El Paso. There was the announcement going on that their Schneider Electric is going to be expanding its facilities in town. If you ever go by the West Town Marketplace over there, near Trans Mountain, actually, on the west side, the northwest side, I guess is what we're calling it now, which still just sounds weird to me, but hey, time marches on. There's one plant that's right there, kind of on the eastern side of the West Town Marketplace area. If you're trying to go behind the Walmart, basically, is an easy way to see it. But they're expanding their facilities in our town as part of a $100 million investment into manufacturing countrywide, I do believe. So they're working on that. So that's a positive one. 400 new jobs expected from that. Again, continuing a trend that I've been looking at as a decent narrative going forward of more investment happening into this region. Now, I've talked a little bit about the near-shoring is the term I've come up with. Let me know if you buy that or not as a decent term for it, of people and companies getting closer, wanting to constrain those supply chains because, well, they're not terrifically happy with the way all the pandemic restrictions and the reality of supply have been going. It's been fun around here either. Apparently Valentine's Day was almost a little bit sour for some out there, not able to get stuff in. Flowers apparently not in great supply for a lot of it, so that seemed fun. I did my gifting other ways kind of for that reason, so hope it worked out well for y'all, and you weren't left going for those $20 a pop roses that I may have seen going around here. Again, interesting times do abound here, but so that's a positive of more investment happening here. But then we had another one of those vacant building or underutilized building fires that seem to happen when we do this cold snap, specifically a commercial building near Paisano and St. Vrain this morning. Some observers saying that this was the former Bonanza meat market going down there. And, well, I guess I'm not too surprised here. But that the smoke you may have been seeing coming from that area, again, Paisano and St. Vrain this morning, looks like the roof collapsed there as well. So another building going down in our area. So giveth and taketh away. This has nothing to do with Schneider Electric, so don't make that a bad comment on them. But I guess I'm optimistic, even if there needs to be maybe a little bit more work done on some of the unoccupied buildings. But I do feel like I'm noticing those yellow signs starting to disappear a bit more. A little less of those, call Gill or whatever the heck signs they were on so many of the strip malls in our area, starting to recede a bit as more gets, focused on redevelopment, which makes me, in general, whatever the hell the rest of the country is doing, optimistic about our region anyway. So, again, we do have those calls in the line if you want to call in. The number to do so, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. We have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul.
Hi there, Raul. What's on your mind?
Hey, an estimated 24,000 Texans die every year from smoking-related illnesses. And then for every person who dies from that, 20 more people suffer from at least one serious tobacco-related illness, such as cancer and heart disease, strokes. This is the cost of capitalism and plutocracy in America. And where's Abbott and the Republicans campaigning concerned about smoking-related deaths? Approximately 88,000 people die every year in the United States due to alcohol-related causes, many of which are traffic fatalities. In Texas, for example, a person dies every 9 hours in an alcohol-related traffic death. And last year, there were 963 people in Texas who died at the hands of a drunk driver. Again, the cost of capitalism and plutocracy. Where's Abbott and the Republicans' campaign and concern about alcohol-related deaths? Abbott deploys troops to the National Guard to the border. Why isn't Abbott rounding up and deporting the Texas share of the 11 million illegals working illegally in Texas? You think there are some illegals working in Texas, Andrew?
I mean, I guarantee there are going to be some working in our area. But okay, let's get past the whataboutism going on here and identify the fact that, A, there are already campaigns going on against these things. I mean, we both have Mothers Against Drunk Driving and other organizations involved within the drunk driving sphere. And then also, I mean, Texas did raise its age of smoking to be 21 and over. And that has gone across the country. And I mean, the sea change in just my lifetime of where you could smoke to where it is just unacceptable, even with the vaping. I mean, that has been getting addressed here. But okay, let's talk then about what you're going to about the issues involving the border and then fentanyl here. I mean, this is the literal #1 killer of people, I believe, under the age of 50, essentially. I think it's 40 something. I need to look that up exactly. But like 18 to that age range, the literal number, even in the midst of COVID, that has been the #1 risk of death happening out there. So, I mean, would you say that that's an important thing to focus on in its own right then? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like Nancy Reagan says, don't do it. Nobody has to do it. This is a demand. It's demand driven. If people weren't doing it, there wouldn't be any supply for it. Abbott is also failing to protect Texas teachers, school personnel, and students by not requiring employees to be vaccinated, tested, or wear masks. The schools are severely short-staffed because of COVID infections.
I mean, yes, we are seeing the short staffing. It's happening across this region. I mean, New Mexico is taking its own tangent on that, raising their minimum teacher pay rates, while Texas isn't doing that. But, I mean, to say that this is an Abbott, I mean, this isn't exactly an Abbott-only problem. We're seeing many other states, New York, amongst others, doing the same kind of pullback on that. So, I mean, are you going to blame them for the same kind of things that you're, I guess, kind of accusing Abbott of here?
I don't live in New York. Remington Arms settled a lawsuit with Sandy Hook parents over the use of their gun by the killer of their children while at school. It's about time they did that. They need to get after these gun manufacturers who provide these weapons of mass destruction.
I mean, I feel many ways about this, but just on that particular case, then a couple of points are very relevant to make, particularly that this is a settlement. This is not a judgment. Nothing has been entered by a court. And I do wonder a bit. I mean, there's a lot of legal reasoning and, armchair quarterbacking going on with this decision. But some of the more reasonable points being brought up there to me is that, I mean, there are national laws that prevent and kind of protect manufacturers of this kind of thing for the use or unintended use of the arms that they are made. So the question has raised up, then why would Remington voluntarily enter into the settlement? Again, this was not required by a court, though it does come in the light of a court case, obviously. So the question has been, why would they do this if there was maybe even a federal law? Because maybe they don't want a challenge coming up to that. It does seem interesting to me. And the challenge was allowed to continue by a state court in Connecticut, I believe, is where this is. That, of course, where Sandy Hook is located. But so I think they were looking to, in my mind, keep this a narrow-ish decision anyway, and prevent it from being moved forward here. So, a lot of conversation going on within the gun rights community about what will this entail, what will this mean going forward. And it seems to me that the desire was to keep this fairly narrow. And, well, a lot of manufacturers have moved out of Connecticut and other states similar to it, New York, among others, kind of for that reason. So whether or not you're crowing about that being a total achievement, don't know if I totally buy it there. But, the question that comes up to my mind is, okay, let's go back to the drunk driving thing you just brought up. Should then manufacturers of vehicles be liable for people who use it for drunk driving, a.k.a. not what it was intended for?
No.
Okay. Well, then I think we have finally a bit of agreement there. So thank you for the points in the call in general there, because, if things are used not how they're intended to be, such as targeting civilians, well, I don't even feel the need to finish that statement, but I'm sure we'll have to bring it up here before a bit here. I'll ask you more of the questions there, apparently. But, we're due for a break right now. We got more calls and questions on the line that we'll get to coming out of this break here. Again, you're listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. The number to call there is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heads up for a freeway closure still happening on I-10 westbound at Horizon. All lanes closed due to an earlier 3-vehicle crash at the Horizon overpass. Under that overpass, so traffic is exiting at Horizon. All lanes closed I-10 westbound. Also on the I-10 westbound approaching Reynolds, another accident that's slowing traffic. Dyer, north of Fred Wilson. Look for an injury accident there with police on the scene. And Rayner, south of Gateway Boulevard at Durazno. Accident reported there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
This is Dan Patrick, proud to be your Lieutenant Governor. You know, the principles and values students learned in a one-room schoolhouse are still true today. That's why I passed a bill to ban teaching of critical race theory and stop boys from playing girls' school sports. The keys to a good education are great teachers and involved parents. I will always fight for great teachers and for parents' view to be heard and respected.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, a principled conservative fighting for Texas.
Running for Lieutenant Governor in 2014, I pledged to ban sanctuary cities and fund border security at historic levels. I kept my promise. This year, I approved funding to build the wall. Texas must secure the border because Biden won't, and we must stop those here illegally from voting.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is endorsed by President Donald Trump.
I am giving him my complete and total endorsement.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Dan Patrick.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the YouTube, the Twitter, and the Twitch. A lot of ways to get at us. We also do have that phone line open as well, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Taking those calls through the end of the hour here today, as we're focusing on, well, a lot of subjects, but we end up getting a little bit broader here than sometimes we intend to. But top of the ones on my mind here are just pencil in elections for what I'm going to be talking about through March and end of the year, frankly, because that's just how it's going to be. In any case, also talking about local business impacts. One of the things I was threatening to talk about is also some focus on city art projects. We'll get to that here in a bit. But let's get to those calls on the line right now. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Some comments coming in as well. Michael Perez sued against Remington was focused on a Connecticut law about deceptive advertising. Comment there. Javier Valle saying that should fork and spoon makers be sued for people's poor eating choices that lead to disease, and some other comments about the last call there, and also some questions about why isn't the administration addressing some of those other industries being talked about there. So if you're wanting to chime in over there and do it through that method, you're more than welcome to. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you can find us if you want to comment that way. It's a decent way to do so throughout the show, or call in again, number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now on the line, we do have Andrew on the west side here with us. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. And I did enjoy your interview with Congressman Tony Gonzalez.
Well, thank you. Yeah, again, I appreciate the availability that these current sitting candidates do have with us to get at least a little bit of introductory here, because there's probably more than a few people who don't realize that he probably represents them now, to be honest.
True. And his accomplishments are quite great. For one thing, according to the webpage from the Congress, he achieved the rating of E9, which is the second highest enlisted rating in the Navy. There's only one enlisted rating higher than that. And yes, he did mention about Border Patrol agents seeing drones flying across the border. Am I correct?
Yep, that was one of the things we've discussed about. Just anecdotally here, I recall having spoken with a hobby shop owner sometime previous to the last decade, before drones really became in advent, and it was about a weird order that he had gotten in for one of those like big-ish remote control planes, like not enough for a person to sit in, but bigger than like, what drone sizes are nowadays anyway, and specifically had wanted 2 controllers with it, which was a kind of a weird request until someone else mentioned to him, oh yeah, they probably wanted to fly that over the border, have one guy in control on one side, and then the guy on the other side take it over. So this is not a new phenomenon in my mind, but it certainly does seem to have gotten easier, because, you can just order this stuff online these days.
True, very true. Well, professional drones, I should say, have a payload rating anywhere, from 20 to 220 kilograms. Okay, professional drones can run up to about $45,000. I'm not talking about military drones.
Sure,
but when you take that into consideration, and a range of about 6.2 miles, that's quite a bit of drugs that you can haul.
That's very true. That's the implication we're seeing here. I'm just going to say some of the videos I see coming across the internet and stuff that I look for are also about the weaponization of this, which is, thank good, knock on wood, not a problem we've seen here, but those implications are terrifying when it comes to what that might mean for the next conflict of any scale, or even here. So these are the things I'm thinking about when we talk about drones and the issues with them. So looking at some like reliable and not gimmicky anti-drone technology, kind of an important one in my mind. I will agree with you.
True, very true. Now, for people who criticize Abbott about militarizing the border and having National Guards troops there, performing law enforcement functions, well, let me inform the audience out there. Just to give you an idea, delivery of a controlled substance over 400 grams is an aggravated felony. That's a minimum of 15 years. So you can imagine how much of a payload or drugs that these things can carry. So for sure, Abbott and his law enforcement teams do have authority to arrest these criminals out there.
Oh, absolutely. Again, the state level trespass, that maybe be facing a kerfuffle within the court. We'll see how that works out. But I mean, to actually the question that was brought up in the previous call here about why isn't Abbott enforcing, the essentially removal of them, we are talking about very different levels of state level laws versus federal. Also, I believe one of our commenters brought that up as well, because importing someone from the country, okay, so there may be some controversy about a lot of the things that Abbott is working on when it comes to border security. Again, a lot of it can be seen in light of the election, as with any elected official in this time of the season, but that one is a lot less gray as to what can be done here, as to being pretty much exactly and solely a federal responsibility.
True. Well, with regard to that, I must educate that Raul character. Abbott has no authority to deport people. Okay, he has advocated and signed into law harsh penalties for DWI offenders. Okay, and as for gun manufacturers, they don't provide any type of weapon of mass destruction to individuals. This it's like you were saying before. It's not. It is not being used for its intended purposes.
I mean, I know there's the argument out there about, well, that's all that's meant to be intended to be used for, but I still find that, okay, most of the people that we have seen doing this, they're not even misusing the implement that I would describe it as, but literally committing crimes in the process of even achieving the possession of them. I mean, that gets, I think, lost in that discussion about Sandy Hook. Let me just get this straight out there. That what happened there was an absolute travesty and never should have happened, but there were also various other crimes committed on the lead up to it. This was not just the weapon manifested itself and he made the decision to go on a rampage with it. That's not the road we went down in doing this. And there are a whole lot of other questions that also need to be, it kind of ends up being like the whole pandemic response does it here. We're focusing only on the end result and not the whole road leading up to it, only focusing on the violence and the implement used into it and not the road leading up to it. Much like the pandemic, we're only focusing on the disease and the supposed one-size-fits-all solution to it, as opposed to let's look at the health and safety of people leading up to it as well.
Agreed. Now, one of my last points is, as for that lawsuit settlement, okay, as you said, it was a settlement between the gun manufacturer and the victims, okay. Yes, that was a tragedy. But I think the reason they decided to settle, it is less expensive to settle and to narrow the consequences, not to provide a legal precedent to Mexico's case. And I will tell you this much, okay? You want to stop gun violence, you want to stop crime, punish criminals. Don't let them loose. Don't coddle them. This is ridiculous. Enforce the laws on the books. That's all I got to say, Andrew.
I appreciate the points on the call there. Yeah, the NIC system, the National Instant Criminal Background Check system, that is, we've talked about the Air Force being fined for their lack of compliance with that system recently, based on the church shooter here in Texas of a guy who had been on the streets of El Paso, which is its own concerning level. But beyond that, yeah, there are a lot of laws on the books. It is very illegal, except in very specific circumstances, to shoot someone with a gun. And anytime it is usually multiple people with a gun, it's almost always going to be outside of specific like castle doctrine or self-defense laws, not going to be working in your favor. So, yeah, I would like to see things, because, stealing guns, felons in possession of guns, all that kind of stuff, already very, very illegal. But, yeah, we ain't having that conversation either here, I will also say. Leroy Chuck commenting on here, yeah, it's always everyone else's fault when it comes to this stuff here. I'm sick of that kind of reasoning here. We've got at least one more call on the line here that we'll get to before this next break. We do have a Mark over in Central with us right now. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon, Andrew. I'm kind of a new listener to your program and a first-time caller, and I appreciate how you occasionally have cut off people when they get on a little bit of a rant. And obviously, with this frequent caller who was on previously, that capitalism and the Republican Party are the root of all evil. But if he has a job or has ever had a job that's not with a government or school entity or something like that, you have to thank capitalism for that job. You know, that's one point, and all the illegals is another point. That problem was definitely getting under control in the recent years and has just exploded, obviously, in the last year. And you know, you don't have to even say who's responsible for that. Everybody knows who's responsible and who made the changes in the border wall and the Title 42 and other issues like that. So I appreciate when you cut off things like that when they get a little bit insane. And I don't like to offer my personal opinion all the time because I wish more people would do that and just chime in with facts and instead of personal political agendas. But a gun itself has never been a weapon of mass destruction. You know, so there's some designations that are just not accurate. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to sound off a little bit.
No, absolutely. We encourage that entirely. So thank you for the point in the call there. I mean, there may come a day, probably before too long, honestly, that there may be autonomous weapon systems. I mean, there's some debate about how drones or military drones anyway are categorized currently. But yeah, anything that you and I can buy is not going to be making any decisions on its own. I mean, it's a tool. That's what it comes down to. And a tool has no intent behind it, but the purpose it is being used for certainly can. But that decision ultimately lies with the wielder of it. Also, interesting fact coming out, reported by the Texas Tribune here today. Just read the headline for you. To build Abbott's border barrier, Texas will use surplus wall panels from the federal government. Probably talk about that more, a little bit more coming out of this break here. Again, you're listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. More calls coming in after the break. Have those phone lines open through the end of the hour. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Creed, your CBS 4 News Update. A 65-year-old man is dead after police say he pulled in front of an oncoming car, causing a T-bone collision. The crash happened Sunday afternoon on North Loop near Del Valle High School. Investigators say Sixto Maderno did not yield the right-of-way to a driver heading east on North Loop. Madera died at the scene. An 8-year-old girl in the other car was also injured. Changes are coming to Sun Metro services starting next week. As we previously reported, starting on Sunday, Sun Metro will temporarily suspend some routes and modify its schedule of lesser used routes. This has to be due to a staffing issue. We have the list of routes affected over on our website, cbs4local.com. And there are some places in El Paso to get your taxes done for free this year. SISD students and GECU volunteers are offering tax preparation service at the district's 6 high schools. Help is available starting today until April 14th, but the schools are on a rotating schedule. We have posted that schedule on our website, cbs4local.com. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is closed at Horizon. All I-10 westbound lanes are closed due to a vehicle crash, a 3-vehicle crash at the Horizon overpass. Traffic is being forced out to exit at Horizon. Expect delays there. And another crash on I-10 westbound approaching Reynolds is slowing traffic. Lee Trevino south of Traywood Drive. Watch for an accident there with police on the scene at Weston Brent Lane in Lee Trevino. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our Tuesday has given way to a windy setup, but it's about to get even windier as we get into Wednesday. So for tonight, we can expect winds a little lighter than what we had during the day. But Wednesday, those winds get started by late morning and will continue till about sunset. Well, that's when we're expecting to see some of the strongest winds with gusts possibly to 65 miles an hour. As a result, we are under a high wind warning Wednesday afternoon and into your early evening.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
The Ridiculous Crime Podcast proves that true crime isn't always about mayhem and murder. Sometimes it's just silly. Take a deep dive into the absurd side of criminality with tales of stupid capers and idiotic cons that are 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous.
16-year-old Max Wade decides to steal the yellow and black Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. The owner? You know him as Guy Fieri.
Listen to Ridiculous Crime on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like, we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live.
I love when my friends stop by, but to help keep my friends and my family safe, I always spray Lysol in my home before guests arrive and again after they leave. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Have you ever thought that the one thing connecting you between work and family is your car? Brakemasters always thinks this way. It's what we like to call being in Brakemaster shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Then head home safely again.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels we're on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of ways you can chime in. Comments coming in there that way. Barbara Carrasco also posting up that article about, again, just a weird situation when you think about it. Literally, the panels that were meant to be used during the Trump administration for construction of the border wall were declared essentially federal surplus property and have made available through the, again, according to the reporting I'm looking at here from the Texas Tribune, made available through essentially a federal surplus share program and, well, picked up by Texas for use in its construction here. So, yeah, it's just kind of a weird situation. The General Services Administration, again, quoting from the Texas Tribune here, a program that allows nonprofit organizations and state and local governments to receive property that the federal government no longer needs. Life's weird sometimes. Anyway, we got calls on the line here as well. If you wanted to call in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now, we do have Stephen in the Northeast here with us on the line. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One thing, with the early elections going on right now, and normally I just post this stuff on the Facebook feed, but I'm in a Facebook jail right now, so I can't.
Okay.
But it's important to go to each of those candidates, pages and research what their policies are. So, you can't just go out and check Abbott because it's important to look at what they all stand for. And I think that so many people, it's like, well, Abbott's here, they just voted without even thinking about researching the other candidates. Same thing goes when it goes into general elections. They look at the D or the R, and that's how they vote. And then as far as with like firearms and stuff and like the alcohol, firearms is usually, that's the only type of death that the instrument is blamed. We don't blame just like you pointed out, we don't blame the cars. We don't blame knives. We don't blame hammers. We blame, when it comes to all of them, we blame the individuals. But when it comes to the firearms, we're fast, they're fast to blame the firearms as opposed to blaming the criminal. So, and
yeah.
I think there's a distinction because of how they're used, but it's important to realize that is the only time.
I mean, I think it's pretty clearly it comes out of ignorance because there's a whole lot of people. I mean, even in my time being in newsrooms, I mean, still doing news related stuff here, but being around more, this is mostly me kind of operation here these days. Just conversations with colleagues who just didn't know how things worked, and it kind of baffled me. And I mean, from some other organizations I've been involved in and conversations with, the general lack of knowledge within the American populace at large nowadays is kind of concerning when you think about it, because there's a whole lot of people just don't get it. I mean, even some of the legislation, California is an easy punching bag with that, but even other states, even closer states, even states that you would be surprised might have this, the way they talk about them and the way they regulate them based on features, based on things like the grip or what is on the end of the barrel that have literally no impact on how the functioning or the relative lethality of that firearm is, are the things that are relegated because they look scary. So the whole scary-looking black rifles, what it really comes down to for me beyond that is the fact that, sure, if you want to focus on gun violence and the impact caused by it, sure, let's talk about that. But let's also recognize that the vast, and I do mean vast majority of deaths caused by firearms is not even rifles, it's handguns. And sure, there are some things on the books with that, don't get me wrong, but that's not the conversation we're having. So if you really want to focus on that, let's focus on what the actual impacts are and not just what looks the most concerning.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
It's just a simple fact of there. And to your point about elections, I applaud anyone who goes out and takes the time to research it. We try to bring you some basics here with the interviews we have. But, I am not at this point, at least in our local area, going to say, if you don't know this, you shouldn't vote, because we have way too many people already taking me up on that proposition. But ideally, everyone would know the exact stances for every candidate on there, be able to have a knowledgeable conversation about it, and then make your decision. But, well, we can dream, can't we?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for the points in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you have a good one there. All right, taking at least a couple more calls on the line here. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. You have Ray in the Far East on the line with us right now. Ray, thanks for joining us.
Yes, hello. I've been writing to mayors like in Chicago, Lightfoot, and to the mayors in New York, where the crime is really sky high,
right?
Because of gun violence. And I was saying, how come they don't make changes to the guns? I mean, like making a fingerprint gun where you put your fingerprint and it works. If it doesn't get your fingerprint, the gun is useless. I mean, they're doing it with the cell phones.
Right. So this is an interesting situation. So there's actually a very specific reason, because there has been some discussion about that has happened nationally. If anyone out there seems to be confused about this, I am into guns and the technology that goes into them, so I have done personal research on this. Specifically, the reason that anytime these even get proposed here, they've been problematic in the best. I mean, there have been some examples that have come out where it's supposed to be a smart gun only unlocked by things like fingerprints or just like RFID tags within like a wristband or something like that. And they could end up being defeated by like $5 worth of magnets. But more specifically, if you want to talk about why kind of the gun industry in general seems uninterested with it, you're adding extra complexity to something that might be, I mean, even police departments have been uninterested in this. And you think, service level, well, why wouldn't they? Could prevent the officer from getting shot by their own gun, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, there are reliability concerns that absolutely come with this, but also more specifically, and this one isn't that well known, that there is at least one state, New Jersey, that has a law on the books stating that if ever a commercially available smart gun comes on the market, that all guns possessed and stored absolutely in the state, but that also, restrict the sale of handguns in New Jersey to smart guns if it ever comes on the market. So that within New Jersey, you could only buy that within 3 years. So that has been one of the serious basic impediments to the implementation of that technology. I have serious concerns about the idea of it in general, because, I mean, you're adding extra complexity to something that you might need in a life or death situation. You're going to miss me with that until it is beyond rock solid and unhackable, which it's never going to be. But that's one of the reasons, nationally anyway, that this has not been fully implemented, despite some interest from even those that are not interested in then kind of backdooring control like that.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. No, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it because if you're having the conversation and the issue that comes up with it is, very interesting here. And, I mean, these things, we maybe have gotten a little bit off topic here with what we focus on in El Paso, but absolutely, these are things that would affect us here if implemented. And, well, it's a personal topic that I enjoy talking about, so you're never going to say, you know what, I don't want to talk about guns today. That if you ever say that phrase, you probably know that that's an imposter of me. Anyway, we got a lot more to talk about here. Due for that next break. Coming out of that break, we'll get to another call or two on the line, those pound 250 calls as well, and a whole lot more. Again, you're tuned into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number to call, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is closed at Horizon. All I-10 westbound lanes are closed due to a vehicle crash, a three-vehicle crash at the Horizon overpass. Traffic is being forced out to exit at Horizon. Expect delays there. And another crash on I-10 westbound approaching Reynolds is slowing traffic. Lee Trevino south of Treywood Drive. Watch for an accident there with police on the scene at Weston Brent Lane in Lee Trevino. Kay Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in any way you have been doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of ways you can interact with the show through those methods, commenting, as we have a few people, Catherine Cordry, talking about guns and, the system in our current lives here. But it's crazy how people with no moral compass and no regard for other people's lives that are the problem here. Michael Perez, Barbara Carrasco, Leroy Chuck, and more. Javier Valles and more a little bit earlier. So if you want to chime in, that's one of the better ways to do so throughout the show. We're going to take another quick call here, but also those pound 250 calls. If for any reason you find yourself with a burning comment or question in between our shows or just can't quite make it towards the end of a show, we can do that is by calling pound 250. 4 of those digits on your cell phone. Has to be a cell phone or device like that because it's a digital call. So dial pound 250 or hashtag 250. Say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted. Leave us your own message. Well, much like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I just wanted to share with all of you out there how excited I am to find out that the accountancy firm, Mazars Incorporated, has dumped that malignant, narcissistic, nutjob Buddy Gotthard. He is so on his way to jail. So excited to find out that they're going to give him the same shade of jail suit as that disgusting-looking tone of skin that he has. Not to mention the fact he's going to have to get a haircut. And boy, oh boy, is that going to be looking good in a mugshot. All his cotton candy, yellow, yucky-looking stuff on top of his head. No more. Oh boy, I'm so excited. I hope all you are too. Why don't you share your excitement with me and call Andrew and let me know what you think.
Again, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso is where you can leave your own comment here. So before we started hosting this show, I did in this current format, I was not, I don't think I'd even heard of the phrase Trump derangement syndrome, to be honest here. But even when I had heard it first off, I was like, okay, that doesn't sound real. That's just a line here. But oh boy, I mean, we're not even talking politics here with that. This is just straight up schadenfreude from someone who doesn't like a previous politician. That's just what it comes down to here. So, I mean, we do take on most comers when it comes to calls and comments here, but just my plea, my ask is that we talk about, at least during the week, the things that affect us here in the borderland and not just, hey, the guy I don't like is getting screwed over, or at least I think he might be. I mean, if your major point here is triggering someone, yeah, that's not what we're about here. Anyway, again, if you're wanting to call in, do that way, pound 250, then say the keyword Talk El Paso. At least one more call on the line here before we hit the end of the show. But again, before we get to that, are going to be in the coming days talking with more of our congressional candidates, specifically for the Texas 16th Congressional District, sitting El Paso Democrat Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, as well as some of the other candidates for county commissioner as well, because we got that race, another one that is one of the more represented ones on this upcoming ballot, and then into the general election, plus probably more stuff coming up next week, and talk with some of the gubernatorial candidates. So stay tuned for more of our announcements so that you can even get your questions in ahead of it here. But at least one last call on the line here for this hour. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Very sad day for me. I listened to Glenn Beck this morning, and what I said the other day, I would have to say I'm going to be very sad, but I can't vote for Trump either. Trump he asked me about if he knew anything about the Great Reset. It was obviously he didn't know anything about it. He knew that Glenn Beck had written a book called The Great Reset, but that was it. Okay, and one other thing real quick. I did some research over the weekend because, I said I wasn't too happy with Abbott in the past and everything because of his response to the coronavirus and how he handled it. And so I decided to look into the other candidates. Don Huffines, nope. I can't remember what his other name was. But anyway, the one I came up with, the best, was Chad Prather. Mm-hmm. If you look at his website and listen to the videos and through his website and the things he has said, he's got a lot of things that Abbott goes along with and everything about the border, about taxes and everything else. But and he has some other ideas. But one thing he did say in one of his little posts was, "Don't tread on me," and that was talking about letting doctors be doctors. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're going to be running into more variants of this virus. There's going to be more lockdowns if we vote for more people like Abbott. And God help us if we got Beto. I mean, Beto is probably, anything like Beto would be the worst. But I'll take Abbott over Beth any day. But I will. But if I have my way, I'd like to hear somebody talk about, that he's going to allow doctors to be doctors, and he is the same. Like I said, the same as Abbott is on most of his other things that they talk about.
That's an interesting point to make there.
Look at him.
Oh, yeah, and as a note there, we have had Chad Prather previously on the program. Again, got the chance to speak with him at CPAC last summer here. So if you want to go back and go to our Facebook page mainly where we have those interviews up, you can see it there. So, I mean, we're reaching out to some of these campaigns to see who we can get back on the program more currently here. I think Prather kind of self-described himself as the candidate of the guy talking to a cell phone in his truck. That's the kind of way he jokingly said it to me. Anyway, when I spoke with him. But again, I fully encourage everyone to go out and look at the different candidates. You're never going to see me saying otherwise to that. If there's any confusion out there, the reason we talk about polling is to look at the currents going on currently when it comes to these elections. But those are not destiny. That does not set the agenda. I mean, it shows a trajectory it's currently on, but electoral trajectories can change, even wildly sometimes. So if you got someone, or if you're like, well, I'm not 100% with it, even if you're like, I don't even know who else is on the ballot, just go look, go ask, go to your local library and say, I want to use the computer and look up these candidates. Can you even help me? There's a whole lot of ways you can figure out who is on the ballot, or even call the campaigns themselves, and they will happily send you some information and literature, maybe even a campaign sign for it. So again, applaud you looking up and investigating the different candidates, because yeah, the trajectory looks like Abbott is going to secure his re-election nomination, but that's not in any way a guarantee. And if enough people decide this ain't it, that could change. Absolutely.
According to all the mainstream media and everything else, it's going to be Abbott, Huffines, or Allen West, and so that's all we have to look at. We don't want to look at anybody else. And Chad Prather is far and above the best candidate. If you just take a look at his website, just out and out, hands above everybody else.
Again, appreciate you looking into it. Appreciate the point in the call there. Again, we've got the interview with him, and yeah, I mean, it never hurts to at least look at the other information. That's kind of the standpoint we come at here, but we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are out of the time for this program. So thanks to everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show today. You are all really what helped make the show what it is, and our discussion of the things that affect us here in the borderland. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. See you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is closed at Horizon still. The westbound lanes are closed due to a 3-vehicle crash. It happened earlier this afternoon at Horizon. Trans Mountain eastbound at Tom Mays Park. Look for a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Lee Trevino south of Treywood. An accident there at Weston Brent. Sanders at Dyer, an injury accident there with EMS crews on the scene. Kelly Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's Ram Truck Month at Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth.